Question number 8, Lawrence Yule.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Employment and asks, does he stand by his statement in the House on Tuesday that, quote, "we won't be punishing everybody who mucks up," end quote?
Mr Speaker,
The Honourable Willie Jackson.
I come from a background where giving people a second, third and fourth chance is the norm. Forgiveness means everything in our communities, and not giving up on people has been part of our lifelong philosophy. Of course, I stand by my statement.
Great.
Supplementary. Is an unemployed New Zealander, quote, mucking up, end of quote, if they refuse to pick fruit while receiving the job seeker's benefit?
Mr Speaker, there are a lot of circumstances around different individuals. It's not just black and white. It's easy to make that assessment to start off with, but we have to look at what's happening in the family, and I'm disappointed that that man from Ngāti Kahungunu is talking in this manner.
That's right.
Supplementary. Should unemployed New Zealanders turn down fruit picking because they don't believe it is dignified work?
Again, Mr Speaker, a lot of circumstances come to play. This government is committed to people having dignified work, picking, doing what the member said in terms of getting out there. Well, no, absolutely. Picking fruit is dignified work. There's no shame in picking fruit, Mr Speaker. However, a lot of circumstances come to play, and that member should know that. It's not easy sometimes to move 50 kilometres. It's not easy sometimes to walk away from your family. It's not easy for people just to give up everything just to pick fruit, Mr Speaker.
Tamati, Coffey.
Has the Minister made any other statements recently about supporting people that make mistakes?
Mr Speaker, I've made multiple statements as the Minister of Employment around... I've made multiple statements, I should say, as the Minister of Employment. I did say that, yeah, around encouraging our communities and our employers to not give up on people who need greater support to keep them connected to the workforce. I've encouraged them to provide pastoral care, something the National Party has no idea of, so that they will look at all avenues that are barriers to employment and help our communities work through that, whether that's through their travel, accommodation, childcare or community commitments or health. The government's intention, Mr Speaker, is to lift people up, not keep them down. Punitive measures are not the answer here.
Is it the government's policy to use refugees to fill labour shortages as proposed by Ian Lees-Galloway in a recent visit to Hawke's Bay?
Mr Speaker, we know we have a crisis at the moment. We'll work through short-term solutions to achieve our goal. We know there's a gap there, there's a hole. We'll do what the National Party was doing for 9 years and fill the gap for a short while, but we're committed to local labour and we're committed to a comprehensive strategy in terms of employment down there in the Bay of Plenty, and we're committed to employing New Zealanders first.
If it is good enough for refugees to pick fruit, why is it not good enough for unemployed New Zealanders to pick fruit?
Because, Mr Speaker, can I just say, I'm stunned that the former Mayor of Hastings and a Kahungunu man is asking such stupid questions. The reality is, Mr Speaker, because, as he well knows, people have big families, people have commitments. People can't just move at the drop of a hat like that person who has an uncaring and insensitive attitude, sir, to his local people, and he should be ashamed of himself. And I hope Ngāti Kahungunu totally dismisses him. And some Ngāti Pro are in the House, and I'm sure they're shocked at his questions too.
Order. I'm going to remind the minister, and it's a ruling that hasn't been pulled out for a while, and that is that it is not appropriate to refer to people in the gallery. I think we allow it more than we used to, but hauling individuals or groups of individuals into matters which are not directly related is certainly outside previous speakers' rulings. Thank you. Lawrence Yule.
When he said on Tuesday, quote, "We won't go down the easy route and just hire foreigners all the time," end of quote, why does he think it's easier to hire foreigners than encourage unemployed New Zealanders into gainful employment?
Mr Speaker, we have a shortfall at the moment, and we'll do what we do. We will do what we have to do right now. But we have a strategy that we're going to roll out. We're working with the growers, we're working with the employers, we're working with the unions. The reality is we have a bit of a crisis going on. You have to do what you have to do to get through the problems, as that member should know.
The Right Honourable Winston Peters. A point of order.
I'll wait till the end of the question because it may get worse yet.
Can I ask the minister?
No, order. Can the member resume his seat? I'm going to ask Mr Brownlee to stand, withdraw and apologise for his misuse of the point of order system.
I withdraw and apologise.
The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Can the minister give an assurance to whoever might pick the fruits, local or from outside of the Hawke's Bay, that when they get down to Hastings as part of their employment contract, they will not be poisoned by the water?
Order. The member does not have responsibility. I think the member has. Order. I am ruling that, like Ms Salisa's approach earlier, it's in the category of a nice try, and might even have made his point, but it's not an area of responsibility for employment contracts.
Point of order.
A point of order, the Honourable Gerry.
I disagree with you that it was a nice try. There was nothing nice about that at all. And the whole tenure of the answer from the minister who is being questioned quite legitimately, if you look at the questions that were asked, there were no political barbs in them, no innuendo in them, just straight questions about matters that relate to his portfolio and what he has been saying publicly. Yet throughout, he resorted to very personal attacks on my colleague. Now, while that doesn't particularly bother us, it does, I think, reflect poorly on the Parliament, and I think ministers who resort to that need to have it called to their attention that that style of answer does very little for either their own prestige, the prestige of the government, or in fact the elucidation of Parliament itself.
I think I'm just going to reiterate what a comment that I made earlier, that in both in questions and in answers, I can't be a sort of, unless something is outrageous, an arbiter of taste. I think the member is correct in his characterisation of the replies, but we are talking about an area where there is, I think it's fair to say, a fierce contest of philosophies, and that was playing out both in the questions and in the answers. But I think members have all heard what Mr Brownlee said, and wise ministers would take it on board. Question number 9, Greg O'Connor.
To the Minister of Social Development, what data